welcome to Answer Me 10, the podcast, with me, Barbara Dickson. Having been interviewed many times over the years, I'm always conscious of the generic nature of interviewing. And in my case, it usually begins with, "So Barbara, tell me, how did it all begin?" This has never exactly excited me, but I've always enjoyed reading those one-page affairs at the back of glossy magazines, which ask the same stereotypical questions to different people every week. Hugely diverse answers appear. So, I thought it would be fun to pose the same 10 questions to some other notable women in the world of music and see what different answers they would give. This is what Answer Me 10 with Barbara Dickson is all about. I hope you enjoy the journey with me. My guest today is British singer-songwriter KIKI DEE. Kiki's professional career began in 1963 when she was spotted singing with a dance band in Leeds and signed to the Fontana label. Known for her blue-eyed soul vocals, Kiki became a hugely sought-after recording artist and session singer, recording for many artists, including her great friend Dusty Springfield. And in 1970, became the first British artist signed to Tamla Motown. On joining Rocket Records in 1973, Kiki achieved huge success with her enduring hits I Got the Music in Me, Loving and Free, Amoureuse, and the worldwide #1 with Elton John, Don't Go Breaking My Heart. Kiki has continued to work tirelessly throughout the following decades, recording, touring, and also appearing in West End musicals such as Pump Boys and Dinettes, and as Mrs. Johnson in Blood Brothers. For the past 25 years, Kiki's musical partnership with Carmelo Lugeri has seen her record her most acclaimed and personal material to date. Together, they've released 5 albums and are currently putting the finishing touches to their latest release, The Long Ride Home. Question 1. Town or country?
Well, definitely country, Barbara. I lived in London actually for over 40 years. I come from Bradford, Yorkshire originally. And I was ready to move out. I like where I live. It's a nice village. It's been great in lockdown. I've been able to take walks and do all the nice things. I've also got a studio and rehearsing space here with my music partner who's in the same village. So it's been great.
Do you miss being in town? Because, as you say, you did live there, as did I. I didn't live in town for as long as you, but there are things that town offers. Do you miss those in the country?
Not particularly. I finally had an outside space because being an urban kid from Bradford, we never really had much of a garden. And I remember moving into the cottage and thinking, blimey, I've got a little garden here. What do I do with it?
Are you a gardener?
No. But my sister is, so I'd be on the phone and saying, what do I do? What do I plant? And I really love it, And also the thing is that London's not so far away and Cambridge isn't so far away. I'm in Hertfordshire. So, I've got the best of both worlds, really. I'm very, very fortunate.
So you've been there, done that, got the T-shirt as far as town is concerned.
I believe so, yeah. And, I went up to London fairly recently for a walk with my niece, and I just couldn't believe how many people there were around. It was a bit of a shock.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Because it's and things are loosening up now. So I live in the middle of Edinburgh, and I found an enormous difference in the last 3 weeks. There's lots more people around, and sometimes I think, oh, I don't like this, but it's okay. And I'm in the middle of the city, but of course, being in the middle of Edinburgh is kind of different to being in the middle of London. Question 2: meat or veg?
Well, if I had to choose, I'd say veg these days. I'm not sure what I would have said 20 years ago, but I feel there's more choice in vegetables than there is in meat and fish. I'm a bit of a fish eater, actually.
So you're not a vegetarian, Kiki.
I'm not a vegetarian. I do eat mostly fish. I can remember touring, with Elton John in the 70s in America. And one of our band members was a vegetarian. And he just couldn't get anything to eat over there that wasn't meat. And
yes, I remember that. I remember people had egg and chips. That was it, wasn't it? Well, in this country, it was egg and chips. You couldn't eat. It had to be the egg replaced the meat, didn't it? It was something in chips, and you could only think that was not actually meat was egg.
So, yeah, really, that's it. I mean, I don't know if it's because I'm older or because how the world is now, but yeah, it feels like the right choice emotionally as well as taste-wise, It's hard to describe why, but I think I would definitely choose veg.
So what would you make for your supper at home? What sort of thing would you make?
Well, probably, I'm not really a cook, although I didn't do MasterChef, which was a nightmare. I got persuaded into doing it. You know what it's like.
Oh, I'd hate that. I couldn't do it. I mean, I cook and I can't stand competitions, you see. I loathe them.
I hate competition too. I sort of compete with myself, but not with other people.
Exactly. I think that's actually very well put. I feel similarly. I don't think I would have described it as well. Yeah, interesting. So what would you make for your dinner?
Well, simple things, really. I mean, pasta dishes are so quick and easy and healthy. And there is the knowledge now to get the right nutrition with all the seeds and beans and things that you can have and the replacements. So I guess I would have to do some exploring into what I was going to eat if I was fully vegetarian. But, I mostly eat very simple things, actually, like a piece of salmon and some salad and some, potatoes or whatever. So I'm a fairly simple eater.
And very nutritious as well. That is this simple but nutritious. My husband laughs at me because he said, because I'm a working class Scotswoman, I tend to not really favour sophisticated food. I like really simple, plain things. And they all laugh at me in my house because my sons are all sort of, they all grew up with Jamie Oliver and they can all cook really brilliantly. I sit there marvelling at what they put in front of me if they cook the dinner, my kids, Question 3, TV, film or books?
Well, this is quite a hard question for me, really, because I've usually got a screen on. I live alone. And I've usually got some kind of screen going on, if it's a TV on. And I've always loved movies, and I've loved the ritual of going to the cinema, seeing a film and just being around people. I've always loved that. So it would have to be screen. But the irony is, Barbara, that I read more now than I ever have done.
What do you read? What do you like to read?
Well, I like a good cheap murder mystery, for my entertainment. I like.
Do you like sort of Scandi noir? Is that the kind of thing you like, or traditional murder mystery?
Well, not too violent. I'm not good with heavy violence. I can't really cope with it in a book. It's not so bad in a book, but especially on film. But I kind of like the village murders.
They're a bit gentler, being murdered in a village.
My two favourite books of the last few years are Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. And
isn't that interesting? Someone else just quoted that to me in these podcasts. How interesting. I don't know that book. I must read it, Kiki.
A lovely book. And there's another one called A Gentleman in Moscow.
Oh, yes, I know that one.
Yeah, by Amor Tolls. And those are my two. I thought I'd just write a couple of books down on my piece of paper that I've enjoyed so much. And reading in bed at night, I just absolutely love.
Oh, I love that. Somebody said to me in this series that they like going to bed early so they can read their book. And I just think it's fantastic. For people of a certain age, there's nothing gentler and sort of more relaxing than being warm and cozy and reading a book. But you're allowed to like all of these things in these questions, and you are allowed to like a bit of both. You don't have to say, I hate that and I favor this side of the question. So that is good. You read and you like TV, film, and books. Do you binge watch box sets or anything like that?
Not really. Not really. I do watch the odd Netflix, I haven't got too much choice. I choose not to have too much choice of what to watch. That's the way I am. But I do, you've got to be proud of UK TV, because when you go around the world and travel, as you know, the TV in most countries is absolutely dire. And our documentaries are fantastic. And even our trash is better than everybody else's,
I tend to agree with that. I think dramas. I mean, Americans are very good at drama, and if you think of things like Fargo and Ozark and stuff like that, it's really good. But there's a lot of good stuff. It's just that obviously at one point in our lives, older people, we had it just flying at us. But now you have to look for good things, I think, because I tend to not watch terrestrial television at all because I just don't like it. So I look for things, but I know where to look. And that's the thing. You can't just say, there's nothing on television and turn it off like people do, because there are good things. You just have to find them.
As you say, search them out. And it's better that way, though, isn't it? I think, you do find stuff that you really want to watch.
Question 4, night owl or early riser?
Well, this is very, very easy for me to answer because I'm absolutely useless in the morning. I have to get up an hour before I have to do anything, before I have to think. I have to just sit there and have my coffee and sort of daze out for half an hour.
That's quite enjoyable, though, in a way, isn't it? Do you kind of formulate a plan for the day while you're kind of half dozing like that?
Well, I think it does give you a chance to look, I wonder what's going to happen today. But it's all about lifestyle, I think, and the old body clock. I think if you've had children, as you have, which I haven't, all my girlfriends who've had children all get up early. It's a habit of a lifetime. And I've always, because I live alone, I've always had the choice of keeping my energy up for the show in the evening, if you like. We've both done theatre, haven't we? And we know that.
Yes.
The clock show. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know how you've done it bringing up 3 boys. And
I didn't do it single-handedly. I think it's well documented. I did have a lot of help. But of course, my secret has been, and I started this when I was first pregnant in 1986, is I have a nap in the afternoon. Now, I don't do a nap in the afternoon when I'm not working, but I do nap. If I've got something to do in the evening, I get up early. Yes, you're right. But then I go back to bed for at least an hour in the afternoon to keep quiet and also to restore my batteries. I don't think I could get through from 8 a.m. till sort of 10:30, 11 o'clock at night without some kind of little break.
No, I get it now. Yeah, I love naps.
Naps, I think, are good. They say that they are they're very therapeutic, and anything that's therapeutic and keeps you going and gives you more energy afterwards is okay by me.
Absolutely. Because we're not in the same room. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but it's hard to know. It's so much easier to have a conversation, but we're doing really well. I'm really enjoying talking to you.
It's lovely talking to you as well. And it is easy I think we've just got used to some sort of long distance relationships during this time, which we maybe would have thought was a bit weird beforehand. But it is amazing how the human being adjusts to these strange times we live in. And it is such a delight. I'm really enjoying talking to people and finding out. My brother tells me that this format that we're doing just now is called a Proust questionnaire, which is you ask the same questions of lots of different people. And my goodness, don't you ever get different answers? Question 5, faith or fatalism?
Well, faith, definitely. I have to have something to believe in. I'm not religious. I'd say I'm an agnostic. I'm not closed down to the idea of greater powers, if you like. I believe in the human spirit, and I believe in trying to be the best person you can be and do the best work you can do. But that's where I stand, really.
Do you sort of read horoscopes and do that as well? I mean, I don't mean either or here, but within, say, fatalism, that is an interesting little side of the question. Would you be guided by anything external like that?
Not particularly. I mean, maybe for entertainment, but I think, I think we can change our fate to a certain extent. We have a certain control over who we are and what we're going to do with our lives. And I'm sure you and I, when we were young women, had to make those changes and had, being in the industry we're in, we had to make those judgments and work on ourselves, if you like. And so I think you can change your fate to a certain extent.
And also have, if you like, trust, maybe that's not the right word, but trust in other people as well, or trusting ourselves to be able to deal with what would happen if we made that decision. I mean, that was always a problem for me because I never really wanted to relinquish control, when this is not a conversation about career, but do you know what I mean? There's a thing in Scotland that people say, which is what's furriel no go by you, which means that if you are meant to have something, this is almost like karma, the rule of karma. If you're meant to have something, it'll happen to you. But would you ever live like that? Would you ever allow yourself to go down that road?
Well, yeah, I mean, I do let things unravel in that way. God, it's a huge question, isn't it? I love
it. It is. It's a massive question, this one. It is really the biggest one of all, I think.
Well, I think as I've, as I've grown older, I've become more interested in what makes people tick and how, how we evolve as human beings. And a lot of this, I know it's not a career chat, but a lot of the songs I've written in the last 20 odd years are all about taking those steps regardless. An album I did called The Walk of Faith, where it's not a religious album. It's more about going for it regardless.
It is very interesting, this, and I think some of it is to do with maturing and making decisions. Some are not so good, and some are, and it's only by making mistakes that you learn what you don't want to do as well. So you need time to do that. But it is interesting. It's very interesting that how people react to life and react to the things that happen and what gives them the strength to go on.
And one of the big changes, as you were speaking, then I was thinking, I'm definitely, I've got more time for the other opinion. I think when I was younger, you sort of tend to feel generally that, what you feel is true and right and correct. And then you realize that we're all so different in so many ways, and people do feel and think and act differently. You've just got to respect people for who they are.
It is interesting, isn't it? I always see the other side, the devil's advocate when I'm talking to somebody or in an argument. I always play devil's advocate, and I can always say, yeah, but what about that? And very often it's difficult to make a decision. I jokingly tie this up to astrology and say it's because I'm a Libran, I can't actually make a decision about anything. But it's not, of course. It's just I can see the other side. And you're right, as you get older, you really can.
I don't take myself so seriously, that's for sure, as I've grown older.
That's a good thing. That has to be a good thing. I agree with that, and I feel much the same. Question 6, Facebook or the phone?
Now, this is an interesting one, actually, because, social media is here to stay, let's face it. And it's a great tool for communication technology. As we're speaking now, your technology is amazing. But, the telephone being one of the most amazing inventions of all time, I've got a huge amount of respect for. And so I'm going to have to say Facebook, I'm afraid, although I don't particularly like it all the time.
Would you phone people? Would you pick up the phone to keep in touch with the people you love, or would you tend to message them?
Well, I try to speak to people because it's very easy to just send texts and emails, and sometimes that's appropriate. But for the people that you want to have a great conversation with, there's nothing like the telephone.
Would you pick up the phone to talk to somebody, make a decision, I'm going to ring such and such a person today, or just pick up the phone and do it, as opposed to, say, Facebook for your working life? Or would you tend to send personal messages through Facebook?
Well, yeah, I do prefer, just making a phone call. I think I'm an old-fashioned girl, really. But one of the great things about Facebook is that you can find people, and people appear in your life that you'd completely forgotten about. Like people who used to work at Rocket Records, Elton's label, in the 70s, that I used to be on. You find this person getting hold of you, and you go, oh, wow, I'd forgotten about her. She was my PA for 3 years, completely forgotten who she was. And suddenly you're in touch with people again. So there are some great sides to it.
Yes, it is a lot. That is a lovely thing. I mean, I got overwhelmed by that. Not to diss the person from Rocket, but I got overwhelmed by that. It's when Facebook first really came winging into my life. But now it's great because I'll get a message occasionally forwarded to me from someone that I'm really happy to re-know. Yeah, there's that lovely thing where I was joking with somebody the other day when we were talking and saying, remember that thing where, well, you probably don't remember, but where I asked somebody, how do you get in touch with you? How do you let people know what you're doing? This is work now. And they said, well, what you do is you set up a desk by the door and you ask them to leave their names and addresses. So do you remember that sort of thing where people would go out the door and leave their name and addresses, and someone would do a mail shot nowadays, of course, with Facebook. And you think, I wonder what James Taylor's up to. You go into the internet and there you are. James is doing a state fair in Ohio and blah, blah, blah. There he is. If you want to go, you can buy tickets.
It's amazing. I mean, it is a researcher's dream, isn't it?
It is. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. So it is a great step forward as long as you can control it yourself. Social media, it can take over one's life.
Well, you're not going to please everybody all the time, whatever you do. And funnily enough, I got a message earlier today where I hadn't answered a request about some project. And I think it had just gone by the by, just a couple of weeks ago. I just missed it. It was on Messenger. And I just got a message today saying, oh, forget it then. It was like, I thought, well, that's a bit off, So you're not going to please everybody all the time, whatever you do. But, you do your best, don't you?
And anyway, it's you have to control your own space and your own time. And that says more about the other person than it does about you, Kiki. And that's what I would say as your counsellor of this morning, that don't worry about that. And because it's not fair. That's not fair. Just because you're in the public eye, you're also, busy and doing other stuff. Question 7, shower or bath?
Oh, I'm a bather, definitely. Yeah, the only time I really like showers is if I'm in a hot country, and it's a nice way to cool off. I've always been a bather, actually. Even if it's a quick bath in the morning. I say bath because I'm from Bradford. Even if it's a quick bath in the morning, or a soak, I'm definitely, that's one of the easiest questions to answer. Oh, yeah, I love my bathing, definitely.
Do you like candles? And a couple of people I've spoken to said they've taken a book. Someone even said they took a newspaper into the bath. And I thought, oh, crinkly newspaper.
No, I've never done a newspaper. I have done magazines and a nice candle and stuff like that. You've made me think of something funny. I used to be a member of a health club in in West London. And Dave Allen, you know, the comedian.
Oh, yes. Yes, I love him.
He used to go there, and I saw him one day in the steam room with a large newspaper. I thought it was the funniest. I thought, is he doing a film or what? Is he filming this? No, but he was sitting there with his large newspaper.
And the thing about him was he was a sort of subversive character, wasn't he? So there's something quite subversive about that behaviour. I love that. That's going to go into my lexicon, I think, Kiki, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Question 8. Spring or autumn?
I absolutely love spring. I don't know why. Well, I do in a lot of ways know why, because it's the beginning of everything. Everything's fresh. Everything's opening up. Everything's budding out. And you've got that lovely thought of nice weather ahead if you're lucky. Yeah, I love spring. And also my birthday's in March. So whether that's a childhood thing, you know, memory of having a birthday then. But yeah.
I think it's very interesting, actually, that you mentioned birthdays, because my birthday is in the autumn, so I feel differently about the autumn. But this question is also tied up with a kind of, you know, one's outlook as sort of metaphysical things. Like, do you ever, you know, sometimes towards the end of the year, people would say, oh my goodness, another year. Oh gosh, where is that year gone? So you don't feel, as autumn progresses, when the leaves are falling off the trees, it wouldn't make you feel sad in any way, no?
Well, I think autumn can be quite sad, actually. I don't know why. I think, you know, you've got this long winter ahead. It's to do with climate, I think. You know, I always have this thing about, you know, at the end of every season, I've figured out my wardrobe. I've figured out what I like wearing and what is working, and I can just get dressed very quickly. You know, once it's there, once it's towards the end, I've got it sorted. And I'm a bit like that with the seasons, you know, once they're upon me, I'm okay, if that makes any sense whatsoever. It's just sometimes the thought of them, you know, the thought of it being a long winter. Although I do actually, don't get me wrong, I like every season, and I like the changes as well.
I think the changes are interesting, aren't they? We are lucky to live in this temperate climate where there's really quite a difference between the seasons, and you're right about spring. And everybody I've spoken to has said, oh, that thing about everything budding, you know, there is an optimism there. But by the same token, I suppose in the autumn, there doesn't have to be the reverse of that. As things are shutting down, we don't have to think, oh dear, that's so sad, or winter's ahead. Apart from in Scotland, of course, where it's very dark in the winter. We have the darkness. It's almost like a Scandinavian thing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have it gets dark at 4 p.m. And so you do have that where it's not particularly cold. I don't think it's much colder than anywhere else. But it is, but the darkness can be really sort of rather depressing. But you just have to get cozy, don't you? That Scandinavian hygge thing.
I think you do. And the thing is that, you know, I lived in LA for a while on and off years ago in the 70s. And it was a bit boring, actually, you know, because everything stayed pretty much the same. We used to get some rough weather sometimes, December, January. But you didn't get that kind of colourful change of atmosphere everywhere. Yeah, it's lovely when the evenings start getting lighter as well. That's a lovely moment.
Question 9. Dine out or take out?
Well, I love to dine out. Well, I used to love dining out when we could. No, we will be dining out soon. I love it. I've always liked the ritual of going to a restaurant and sitting with people and having some nice food and having a glass of wine, and I just love it.
Do you dress up? Would you dress up to go out? Would you look at that as part of the joy and of the ritual?
Just to a certain extent. I mean, I'm not formal at all, but I would, you know, make a bit of an effort with my hair and makeup and stuff like that. But you know what, Barbara? I'm thinking about when I came to London in the 60s. One of my memories, you know, I came down when I was 17, and I remember going to dinner with my manager, who managed Dusty Springfield as well, actually.
Wonderful.
I remember having a glass of wine with dinner and thinking, I've made it now. I'm sophisticated. I'm in London having a glass of wine with my dinner, you know.
I remember there was only one shop in Edinburgh that sold wine when I came to live here when I was 17. Yeah, that's right. It was very unusual. And it was also unusual to have dinner. And you never had people round for dinner in our young life. People didn't come for dinner. They didn't come for a meal, did they, to your house? They came for a cup of tea.
I mean, I can remember, in Yorkshire, of course, dinner was lunch and
yes,
tea, so it's a bit confusing. But just that thing of, I suppose, everybody started moving in the 60s and flying abroad and then bringing back some European ideas, from France and Italy and Spain. And I suppose that's when we started drinking wine and all that stuff. But it's just such a lovely memory of my youth of just, being in London in the 60s was fantastic enough anyway.
I bet it was. I remember my most memorable wine experience was joining in with a bottle of Chateau d'Yquem, which is the most exclusive Sauterne. You probably have had a glass of it yourself. It's now, God knows how much it costs a bottle. It must be 100, 200 quid a bottle. Anyway, so I remember being given a glass of this with a slice of fresh pineapple because they said that was the optimum food to have with this wine. So, I mean, can you imagine sipping that and eating this piece of pineapple as a pudding after a meal? That was the most sophisticated. I thought, you've come a long way, Barbara Dickson, from 66 Oakle Terrace, Dunfermline.
Bless you. You know what, though? I think variety is the spice of life, and everybody should be able to experience everything, like, all those levels those levels of sophistication. I think, in an ideal world, we should all.
It is great. Yeah. I mean, we are very lucky to have had the opportunity to do these things and also to remember them. That's the most important thing, is you remember with fondness and can tell other people about it. Question 10, high heels or trainers?
Well, trainers. Being an older gal, and I'm sure you probably now because you're running, but I mean, I love high heels. I've never worn incredibly high heels, but I do like them, and they're so glamorous.
And you're tall, aren't you? You are tall. You've not had a problem with height. The short little girls very often will never give up high heels because they need that sort of assertive thing.
Well, I mean, I'm 5'6". I'm sort of average, but I remember, I've got to tell you, I remember this story in the 70s where I've still got my silver rhinestone boots, the ones, what they call them, stacks. I've forgotten what they call them.
Yes, I know what you mean.
So you used to wear flared jeans and stack heels, and you'd feel like Jerry Hall. You'd be so tall. Because I've never had long legs, a long body, short legs. So your legs would suddenly be really long. And so they were fantastic. I used to tour in those. I toured with Elton with those in America around the stadium gigs in these platform boots. They were just hysterical. I've got them in my loft somewhere.
Do you wear high heels for working now? Or do you wear, would you wear anything that gave you more height now to work?
Well, I don't know about you, but I feel that dressing is very much, when I'm working, about, feeling very comfortable, not having to fidget around with myself. And I like doing festival type gigs because it's so casual, and I might dress up a little bit more if it's a theatre show. But yeah, I tend to wear trousers actually. But yeah. I forgot what you asked me now. I'm getting carried away with my wardrobe.
No, it's interesting actually, because I usually wear trousers as well because I play the guitar, and I've always slightly worried about playing the guitar in a dress. That's just a prejudice of mine from years ago. But I tend to wear sort of stack-heeled boots now. I would never wear stilettos because I would definitely look like Dick Emery. You know what I mean, don't you?
Well, the thing is that, people like Kylie can carry the old high heels when they're working. But personally, I I do like some elevation, but I wouldn't wear high heels. No.
Well, Kylie Minogue is also tiny.
Yes.
And I think little girls, I mean, there's a lady who goes to our cathedral here who does the flowers and is fantastically glamorous. And Valerie has got massive heels and she's not young, but she's little. And she said she can't bear it. She can't bear being on the flat. I think she feels that she's in a hole. It's just been great to talk to you, Kiki. I mean, it's been a fantastic joy. We had a few technical hitches getting to talk to each other and being together virtually, I know. But it's just been lovely. And lots of love with everything you're doing. And let's hope in the very nearest future you're back doing your shows again. And, you have that wonderful liberation of singing, which we all love. And thank you for being part of Answer Me 10.
My pleasure, Barbara. God bless.
Thanks for listening to Answer Me 10 with me, Barbara Dickson. This podcast was recorded in Edinburgh in 2021 and produced and edited by Lee Noble and John Eden.